It is Grand National Week. Hello and welcome to the first of three Aintree daily podcasts brought to you by SBK this week. This is going to be a fantastic end to the jump season in England. Hopefully we can provide you plenty of winners, and hopefully plenty of you are coming onto this podcast having watched all of our daily podcasts for the Cheltenham Festival where we had plenty of success. I say we, it's not just myself, Tom Collins, of course. I'm joined by the brilliant Ross Millar, who you'd have seen in all of our SBK podcasts over the last however many years. Ross, looking forward to end this jump season on a high. And what are we expecting from the ground this week?
It's a bit of a concern, isn't it, TC? They've put a lot of rain down. I saw one guy say that they're basically putting down a month's worth of rain in a week, trying to keep it sort of on the soft side of good, which is absolutely fine. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I completely understand the welfare side of it. The concern is if they've got that wrong, and it's been a little bit tricky. I mean, I've got access to the BHA website via an owner sort of sign in, and it's not been a huge amount of information on there, which is slightly concerning. But to answer your first question, yeah, really looking forward to it. I would say, if you did follow through Cheltenham, we managed to, get you into the green. Aintree is always a meeting and has been for about the last decade where I've learnt my lesson. It's very easy to give back some hard-earned gains at Aintree because particularly this year, you've got a 3-week turnaround instead of 4. Some horses will recover quicker than others. And the truth of it is that not many of them have done much work. So trainers, yes, they'll know more than us, but they're still slightly guessing. You'll get one or two that will just not perform and trainers say, oh, obviously can too soon. Crying example of that is Constitution Hill does turn up, having hit the deck at Cheltenham, whereas Bright Day's Head didn't hit the deck but got bumped. She clearly hasn't recovered. Perfectly fine with both decisions for both trainers, but it just shows that it's hard for us just to get a handle on quite how prepared these horses are going to be and whether they're holding on to their form. So I rein my stakes back massively. I go with a bit of caution, and I'm certainly going to take an angle. I'm going to look to find horses that are arriving fresh.
Yeah, I will too. I rein my stakes back as well. Not necessarily from exactly the same reason, more that I'm now focusing on the flat season, but I will obviously still have plenty of plays throughout Aintree this week. We talked about the ground briefly there. Lots of watering, as Ross has said. The current going description as of Wednesday at 11 a.m. when we're recording this episode is good to soft, good in places on the Mildmay course. The going stick reading, Mildmay Hurdle is 4.7, Mildmay Chase is 5.0, and the Grand National course also 5.0. So it's going to be on the quick side, but we kind of expect that in spring, maybe a little bit quicker than many connections will have wanted. Okay, a brief offer from SBK before we get started with Thursday's races. SBK is offering a free horse racing bet builder on the 405 at Aintree on Thursday. You just need to be a customer with SBK. If you've already got an account, then just log in and you should be able to opt in to get this offer. If you haven't got an account, sign up and take advantage of this. Right, we're going to discuss 4 Grade 1s on Thursday in depth before opening up the floor to any other fancies in the remaining 3 races. We'll begin with the Grade 1 Manifesto Novices Chase. That's at 1:45 p.m. Arkle winner Django Bay is your favourite here, around 5-2. Impere Pass is 3-1. Croke Park 4-1. Gidley Park 6-1, and it's 14-1 bar those. Ross, who do you like here?
I'm a big fan of Django Bay, TC, and it was incredible that he won the Arkle. This is definitely much more his trip. But I just take the view he ran the fastest closing or sectional over fences of the entire Cheltenham week. He cannot have done that and not given himself a hard race, and that just tempers my enthusiasm slightly. Impere Pass, another really classy horse. His form at this meeting last year, beating Bob Ollinger, that's obviously been boosted of sorts with Bob Ollinger winning the Stairs Hurdle this year. Langerdown was in pretty good form at that point. Won really nicely first 2 starts over fences, but then he fell apart in the Race Festival, which was the first properly good contest he'd run in. His jumping sort of really went to bits. So that tempts enthusiasm. Quick ground, good field. Is he going to jump well enough? So at a bigger price, I'm going to take a chance on a horse. And it is a bit of a chance because he's clearly a bit fragile. Gidley Park. He beat Lucky Place in a graded race at Cheltenham over hurdles last year. That looks like good form in hindsight. First chase start was a washout. He pulled up after 5 or 6 fences, but was found to have a heart issue. His second start in the Lightning Novices Chase at Windsor, I was really impressed. Really powerful performance, jumped brilliantly, was clever when he needed to be, had plenty of scope. Pulled away from Caldwell Potter, who loomed up, that was over 2 miles, loomed up, looked like the winner going to 2 out. Gidley Park just powered away from him, particularly in the last half furlong. Now, Caldwell Potter was probably a work in progress, but I would caveat that by saying that I don't think Windsor would suit Gidley Park at all. He's a huge horse. It's quite a twisty, trappy track. I think he'd be better on this more galloping track. For all that Aintree is fairly sharp, I think the step up in trip will really suit him. He does come here fresh because he missed Cheltenham. Now, he missed Cheltenham because he had a little setback in his prep up to Cheltenham. So that's another minor concern. It sort of gets at the fragile side of him. But I think this horse with a tremendous amount of potential. And if either of those two that I've mentioned, Django Biden and Parapass, underperform, I think he's well capable of taking advantage. Provided they're as aggressive here as they were at Windsor, they really made use of his stride. I would hate to see them try and ride him to get the trip, because I think that would nullify his assets, which are his big gallop stride and his scopy jumping.
Quick word on the trip then, because obviously he had an entry, on Saturday, but Connections have opted for this race instead over the 2.5. They could have gone 2 miles on Saturday. Are you happy with that decision?
Absolutely, I'd have been dead against him on what we think is going to be spring ground over 2 miles. I think could have just got him at it a little bit. I think he's he's quite a free going horse, but this trip to me looks ideal on this track.
Gidley Park then for Ross at 6-1 in the opener on Thursday. I'm going to be loyal to Django Bay. As I've already said many times before, loyalty in punting is not a strong asset for anyone really. But this horse did nothing wrong at Cheltenham last time when I liked him. Got outpaced at a crucial stage and got up late. Okay, he wasn't the best horse in the race. Masborough should have won if he jumped well. But Django Bay still managed to get his head in front in a close finish between 4 horses. I love the step up in trip. I think this track will suit based on the hurdling form last season, and the ground will be perfect for him. So I'll be a little bit boring and go with the 5-2 Jolly in the opener at Django Bay. The second Grade 1 on Thursday is the 4-year-old Juvenile Hurdle. That's at 2:20. Now this race has cut up a lot since the early entries. Lulamba's not in there, Lady Vega Allen's not in, Hello Neighbour's not in. So this field's probably not as strong as we're anticipating, Ross.
No, definitely not, TC. I think we're sort of in alignment on this. Again, taking a fresh angle, naturally nimble for Joseph O'Brien. He was being teed up for the Boodles hurdle. He ran all right on his first start. He beat Willie DeHoo, and I've got written down here by accident. And I mean, it really was. They had no intention of beating Willie DeHoo. Willie DeHoo went 2-3, and naturally nimble sort of fell in. Then went to, that was at Ferryhouse, then they went to the Dublin Racing Festival. He did not want to be getting involved there, and he was sort of ridden right out the back, still finished very eye-catchingly. It looked like they were trying to get him lined up for the Boodles off a fairly nice handicap mark. That's a race that the Connections have plotted to before. He missed Cheltenham, comes here. This doesn't look as deep as the Triumph Hurdle by any stretch. The one minor concern is JJ Slevin, 0 from 15 in his last rides. It's a small sample, but going into a big meeting, you would just like a jockey to feel that they're riding on a crest of a wave, full of confidence. That, to me, means they take the gaps when they come. They don't second-guess things. JJ Slevin does seem like a cool customer, so I'm sure it won't bother him too much, but I thought that was of note. And then just one at a much bigger price is Give It To Me OJ. I think he's progressed with each of his 3 runs, bar maybe a second run. His first run was really promising at Wincanton, behind East India Dock. Didn't jump all that well, but I liked how he stuck to it. Maybe a slightly backward step next time out at Haydock, where he didn't jump all that well and was beaten by the horse that Tom Lacey runs here. But he was really impressive at Newbury last time and was poor at the last, but I really liked that he could very easily have hit the floor at the back of the last at Newbury, but he didn't. He found his feet, did that in a canter. That was a moderate race, and the form has actually not worked out all that well. The runner-up was beaten the other day, but he just looked to have such an engine. Gary and Josh Moore coming into a little bit of form, I hope, into the flat season when they tend to really get going. I just think at a big price, around about 50-1, he might be worth an each way go.
Yeah, you can get 54-1 with SBK on Give It To Me OJ right now. Also, Naturally Nimble there for Ross at 13-2 with SBK at the time of recording. I'm also going to be with Naturally Nimble for many of the reasons Ross has said. Fresh angle, the ground angle, and potentially he's a lot better than what we've seen so far. I anticipate we're going to see a career best from him, and that could be good enough to beat the tepid favourite in here, which is Put Your Hands Together, who won Fred Winter at the Cheltenham Festival. Another horse to talk about in the race was Liv Conti, who's around 9-2 for the Skeltons and is currently unbeaten. Race 3 at Aintree on Thursday is the Aintree Bowl. That'll be run at 2:55, over 3 mile, 1 furlongs. Betfair Chase runner-up Grey Dawning is your favourite in here, around 9-4. John Durkan runner-up, Spillans Towers also in the field and his second favourite. And then you're looking at Hoyson Yor and Gaelic Warrior around 7 and 8-1, respectively. Ross, who'd you like?
I think the market's got it right, TC. I think this is, to my mind, between Grey Dawning and Spillans Tower. I like Grey Dawning just because I feel this has been a really well-plotted route. After the King George, which I think was probably the poorest bit of training this horse has had in his career, in that he had a very hard race at Haydock in the Betfair, travelled through it like a very good horse, just got outstayed by dour old Royal Pagaille. Immediately afterwards, Dan Scout said he's had a hard race, he won't be anywhere near the King George. then changed his mind. I think that was partly down to the fact that it looked like the King George was slightly breaking up at that point, and they thought they'd take their chance. He made a mistake at the second fence, was on the back foot from thereafter, put a line through that, freshened up. The plan then was pretty early on. We knew he wasn't going to Cheltenham. He was going to Kelso for the Premier Chase, which he won in really nice style. Didn't look to be hard pushed to do that, and he was then going to come here. Dan Scouten obviously gunning for the trainer's title. He needs every penny he can get. So I like the fact he really plotted for this. He'll love the ground. He's a good jumper. Spillane Tower, I'm just not sure that Jimmy Mangan's going to have had such the luxury of plotting this out, because there was a chance he might get supplemented. He was in the Ryanair. Was he going to get something for the Gold Cup? It's just, to me, seemed a little bit of a messy season for this horse. We don't know whether he's perhaps, not been shown on what they wanted at home, maybe, and that's why they weren't making any firm plans. On top of that, the John Durkan form has worked out really well. Beat Factor File there. We saw what Factor File did in the Ryanair. I do, though, think that Factor File was probably going to step forward for that John Durkan run, so I wouldn't take it too literally. He should improve for the step up in trip on this ground, so I do like him, but I'm just going to enter Grey Dawn because I think this is a really well plotted route, and it's been the plan from some way out, and I like that.
Grey Dawning then for Ross at 9-4. I fully respect Grey Dawning. I think he should be favourite, but I'm going to be taking him on with a hoist in yaw, purely because this is a motto, an MO that I kind of live by year on year. Back a hoist in yaw at Aintree and don't bet him anywhere else. We've seen his form figures of late have been a little bit disappointing. PPF coming into this contest, but he was actually travelling quite well in the Gold Cup when he came down. Not to say he would have featured. I don't think he would have, but it wasn't a terrible run up until that point. At Aintree, he's just a different horse. He won at this meeting in 2021, in 2022. He was placed in 2023 and placed in 2024. I think he goes close and he's a fair price at 13-2 or 7-1. The final race we'll zone in on Thursday is the Grade 1 Aintree Hurdle at 3:30. Constitution Hill is back on track against Lossiemouth. No brighter days ahead in this contest. Constitution Hill just gains compensation, or does he?
Well, TC, I'll just flag you to some of your golden rules. No loyalty, and don't back horses if they've fallen last time out. So obviously, I'd be interested to see who you're going for in this. But you did go for a hoist in the last race. This is genuinely painful for me because I love Constitution Hill. I can't say I'm fan and member of the Fan Club because, of course, I'm not, because loads of us love him. But he's everything I love about racing. But I just wonder, he had a fall. They appeared to have got over that quite quickly, but the fall had been coming. You watch back his runs this year, he's been getting lower and lower and chancier. And the fence or the hurdle before he fell, he was very lucky to get away with that. He got very long to it and only just got to the other side. Go back and watch his Aintree run 2 years ago when he won. He was really ballooning his hurdles and jumping very big. So he's hit the floor. You'd like to think that would sharpen him up, but he's then had schooling over telegraph poles, which are designed to sort of, if he leaves a leg there, he's going to feel it and think about it and jump a little bit bigger. I've seen it plenty of times in my own eventing career when horses make a mistake, they can start to second guess themselves. I've seen it in racing before where horses have made a mistake and then their jumping's fallen apart for a little bit. I'm sure he's had the best of everything and he's got a great chance. But then you go back and watch that win in this race 2 years ago. Beat Sharjah and Zanahiyr by 3 lengths. Now, he jumped the last absolutely cruising. Nico was waving to the crowds. And then just as Sharjah and Zanahiyr were closing, Nico started to just get down into the saddle and just push him a little bit. Not fully vigorous, I'll admit, but there was no response at all. And I just wonder how much petrol he had left. On top of that, that was when he was in peak form, and it was his lowest performance run of his career to that point. He's had breathing operations since, clearly got a bit of a concern over his wind. I would have had no issue in going into the red over 2 miles at Cheltenham. I just wonder if they can get him into the red 2 mile 4 round here, whether he's gonna have the required stamina. And whilst I take on board that Lossiemouth has got a bit to find, she's rated 160, she gets £7. Takes it to 167, Constitution Hill 175. Still a good bit to find, but is he capable of running to 175 over 2 mile 4 at Aintree after a fall? I'm not sure. Conversely, she comes in really bolstered by a cant around at Cheltenham. It wouldn't get anywhere near carried away by the form, but she went through the race really nicely. This trip is clearly her optimum, and she's run to 160, but she's never had a chance to run to a bigger figure over this intermediate trip because she's always done it so easily. It could just open up a little bit more improvement for her. And at the prices, I'm reluctant to go with Lossiemouth, but I will be very happy if I'm wrong on Saturday at 3:35.
A very surprising selection there from Mr. Ross Millar. 9-5 about Lossiemouth going against Constitution Hill. I certainly won't be taking him on. I understand the falling logic and jumping potential tentativeness that we're going to see this week. I don't think that's going to be a case personally. I can see why people do, but it's not for me. I think he's going to be fine over his hurdles. He's usually a horse that has too much courage, if anything. And I think maybe just that incident will make him stand off the hurdles a little bit. Look, as you've already talked about, he's rated 175, Lossiemouth 160. With the allowance, he's got £8 in hand. Lossiemouth was good at Cheltenham, but she beat nothing. And the reason they didn't run in the champion hurdle, in my opinion, was because they didn't think they had a chance of winning. Whether that be because State Man was the better horse from the Mullins yard, or more likely, because Constitution Hill was in the lineup. She only ran an RPR of 156 at Cheltenham, despite wowing. It was a weak race. Constitution Hill, if he stands up, I think we'll win here. And given you're getting 5 to 6, that's around 54% likelihood of the horse winning. The only reason I think he'll lose this race if he falls. Well, he's only fallen once in 11 starts. That's about 9%. Give me Constitution Hill. I think the price is very fair. That's it then. That's the 4 races done on Thursday. Any other horses on the remaining 3 races? That's the next section. I'm going to go first here. And my selection is going to be Primoz in the 440. This contest looks pretty deep on paper, but I think Primoz is open to so much more improvement that he could just blow his mark of 130 out of the water. He is very inconsistent, and his run at Cheltenham wasn't great, but I feel like Aintree is going to see him in much better light. And if he's travelling and jumping better through the first half of this race, I make him hard to beat, Ross, at around 6-1. Any other fancies for you on Thursday?
No, I'm with you. Glad to see you listen to the Millers movers. No, we were joking that we'd both come up onto the Primoz train at about the same time. The Cheltenham run wasn't great, but as I said to you earlier, you watch it back. He got an absolute flyer for the false start. Derek Fox clearly wanted to go forwards. Then they had the standing start. He's a novice horse. He clearly got a little bit boiled over, stood there for a second, was towards the back of the field, and you simply weren't going to win from there. And his jumping did slightly fall apart, and he didn't travel with the sort of same confidence. I'd put a line through that. Derek Fox obviously not on board. Patrick Wadge takes over. If you want a front running ride, you've only got to look at his ride from the Ultima on Myertown to know that he's well capable of delivering that, and the big occasion clearly doesn't bother him. I think he's got a really good chance.
Both of us then with Primoz in the 440 at around 6-1 for Lucinda Russell, who is likely to have a pretty good Aintree, I imagine. Thank you very much, Ross, for your opinions on Thursday's races. And hopefully you guys at home have enjoyed this mini podcast covering all the featured races on the first day of the Aintree Grand National Festival. If you did enjoy it, please whack a like down below. That is much appreciated. And join us again tomorrow, where we'll be talking about all of Friday's action and maybe a little bit of a recap on Thursday when Constitution Hill wins. Before you go, a quick reminder that SBK is giving customers a free bet builder in the 405 at Aintree on Thursday. You just have to opt in to receive that. 3 legs required for the bet builder. All new SBK customers get £30 in free bets when you sign up and place your first £10 bet. And you can head to the SBK app to find out all the other promotions this week, as well as listening to the SBK betting podcast on the horse racing page. SBK is a completely new sports betting experience with sport at its heart. There is no casino or a roulette wheel in sight. Sport is what SBK is all about. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.